Now we got a great guest for you guys. His name is Eric Sterling. He's former DEA chief, and he wants to talk about Prop 19 and whether we should legalize drugs or not. Okay, so as a broader topic as well. Eric, welcome to the Young Turks.
Hi, I've got to correct one thing. I was never worked for DEA. I was not a DEA chief. I was a counsel to the House Judiciary Committee, and in the 1970s, and I oversaw DEA as a congressional staffer.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing that drives me crazy, because I get these notes from you, from your folks. I believe. I could be wrong. I don't want to throw them under the bus. Because I saw that you were on the staff of the subcommittee on crime, and you were,
right.
you know, you were responsible for drug enforcement, gun control, et cetera, and that you were part of the Comprehensive Crime Control Act of '84 and Anti-Drug Abuse Act of '86, '88. So you were involved in these policies. But I was surprised at DEA chief, but I said it because it's on there. Anyway. All right, so...
but I support Proposition 19 in California.
All right, so let's talk about that. First, for the people who don't know, what is Proposition 19 in California? It's
the tax and control initiative that's going to be voted on November 2nd. It would say under California law, adults can possess marijuana, which means they can use it, and adults where they have access to land, they can grow their own in a plot that is no bigger than 25 square feet. They can't sell it. They're not allowed to sell it under this initiative. But it would mean that marijuana essentially would be legal for adults. Penalties to distribute it to minors, to persons under 21, would be strict. They get stricter if the person's under 18 and much stricter if the person's under 14.
All right, now, Eric, actual former DEA chiefs have come out against Prop 19 and said this is dangerous and we can't have it. It's going to, I suppose, encourage drug use. Why do you think they're wrong?
Well, it's certainly not going to encourage drug use because once we have a system of control and once we have a system where we're talking honestly to young people about the relative harms, there isn't any evidence that they're more likely to increase the use of marijuana. The problem now is if I'm an illegal drug dealer, a kid is a great person to sell to because a kid is not an undercover cop. If the kid does manage to testify, my attorney can do a better job cross-examining a kid than an adult. To sell to kids is easy in the illegal business. The penalties may be higher, but it's much harder to enforce. The key thing, of course, is the fact that it's illegal in this way is creates a lot of glamour around it. We seem to be fascinated by this in a way that I think would begin to change culturally when we begin.
Eric, I'm sorry. I want to jump in with a couple other things.
Sure.
So as I said back in '86 and '88, you're passing anti-drug abuse acts, et cetera. What happened? Did you have a come to Jesus moment where you said, "Oh my God, this thing isn't working," or did you have the same ideas back then but pass those laws anyway?
Well, I had the same ideas back then. I'm an attorney and I work for my client. When I was a criminal defense lawyer and I represented someone who was a burglar, that didn't mean I believed burglary was a good thing. I represented a burglar because that was my job to provide that they had a fair trial. When I worked for the Congress, my job was to help members of Congress write the best laws that they could. And I'm glad that I was able to do the work that I could, but I was also able to argue about what the due process considerations were in the legislation that we were writing, to do the best that I could to write the best laws for the American people. But I always knew that, and it became actually clearer, as I would have hearings and hear the evidence and hear the explanations of the heads of the DEA, became clearer and clearer that this policy wasn't going to work. It's never going to work.
Wait, now, Eric, not fair. We tried it for, how long now? 50 years, whatever? If we just give it a couple of more years, won't it work?
we're spending, federal, state, and local on drug enforcement overall on the order of $50 billion. Most of that is the enforcement costs, the people in prison. We've got 500,000 people in prison just on drug charges now. Most of those are not marijuana cases, but many people go back to prison because they're on probation or parole, and their urinalysis shows that they smoked marijuana. They haven't hurt anybody, but they've flunked a drug test, and they go back to prison or parole. It's tremendously wasteful, and I don't think people realize how much we've changed our justice system. When I started working as a lawyer more than 30 years ago, the prison population total was about 250,000. Now the prison population total is more than 2.5 million. How many people...
Wait, say that again. Hold on. That's a huge number.
We went from a prison population of about 250,000.
In what year?
That would have been about 1972.
Mm-hmm.
And now the prison population total is 2.5 million. The federal prison population was about 25,000. It's now over 200,000.
So you're saying since 1972, this country's become 10 times more criminal?
Well, no, of course it's not become more criminal. It's become more punitive. And there's a big difference.
Of course.
Now, the other thing is, think about all the guys who are unemployed because they used to make cars. Well, in the glory days of Detroit, when you only had 250,000 people in prison, we sold a lot more cars. None of the men in prison last year bought a new Chevrolet or a new Ford. The rate of new car purchases has grown only at half the rate of the adult population growth since the start of the war on drugs.
All right, Eric, I want to ask you something. Why do you think it's still illegal? I mean, we have a mountain of evidence that shows making it illegal just has not worked. I mean, earlier in the show, we did a story about how ecstasy use went up 37% just last year. And meth use went up 60% last year, let alone marijuana, let alone everything else. The whole drug war isn't working. Why are we still doing it? Do you think it's money? Whose money? What is it? Why are we still doing this stupid, abject failure?
I think that we're still fighting around the cultural battles and fears of the 1960s. That the key you can tell when I testify before a legislature, and you hear the jokes that are told by legislators. They know that marijuana is not dangerous. I mean, they don't joke about abortion. They don't joke about AIDS. They don't joke about drunk driving, but they'll joke about marijuana. And it tells you that it's not real. They know that it's not dangerous, but it exists in a kind of cultural time warp where we're still, protecting children from sex and drugs and rock and roll. And generationally, it's going to end on a generational basis. And that's one of the reasons why we see from the polls that young people overwhelmingly support this. Democrats overwhelmingly support it. Men overwhelmingly support it. If it doesn't pass this year, it's going to pass in a couple of years.
So, Eric, some people have this theory that, hey, you know what, the alcohol industry doesn't want it to pass because it's competition.
It is true.
Crazy
That's
talk,
true.
Or does that make any sense?
Oh no, it's quite true. The alcohol industry is very aware of the economics and the substitution issues. A big part of their market is the heavy use, and when you were talking about some of the data that came out today, binge drinking among those who are 18 to 25 last year was at a rate just under 25%. That's a lot of drinking. That's a rate that is a lot of alcohol consumption, and the alcohol industry doesn't want to lose that.
Right, but you know what? I'm not sure. Like, the thing is, the way that would have to work is that they would have to donate to politicians who are tough on drugs. And I don't know if I've never seen any evidence of that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I just haven't seen research showing like alcohol companies giving to politicians who are anti-drugs. But that would be interesting. It's something that maybe somebody should investigate.
It's not that they're specifically doing it that way. They have enormous effect. Here in the state of Maryland, for example, the state Senate president, Mike Miller, his family is in the beer distributing business. Our alcohol taxes, our liquor tax has not gone up since the 1950s. Our beer tax hasn't gone up since the 1970s. We have one of the lowest alcohol taxes in the country. And the beverage distributors are a very powerful political lobby in our state legislature. And this is true in many states.
Right. Eric, unfortunately, we're out of time here, but luckily, just in time for me to solve this issue, we let Anheuser-Busch sell weed, and it'll be legal tomorrow. Okay.
Well, they, I am sure, are thinking about it, but right now, they're not yet ready to do it.
All right. Eric Sterling, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure to be on the Young Turks.
All right. Thank you. Young Turks.